task. This here is the fastest ever. I've managed to get early access to the first phone in the world. You've probably heard of the YTP that's powering almost every long enough, but this has what they're calling the 8 super top secret right here. This is going to be the chip inside your neck, and it's going to have 10 insane implications for it. So, thanks to let's dive into an early look at flagship phones. So number 10 is to do with AI, and I know it's been like the industry buzzword for the last 5 years. I feel like I'm becoming numb from hearing it, but this is what you need to know.
For some time now, smartphones have had traditional CPU and GPU cores, but also separate which, because they're like some tasks that the CPU had to have used large amounts of to just power through, and now, with this 8 Gen 1, the AI core is 4 times less speed than that of current high-end phones, which gives it a whole new level of speeds that it can take on. It means that your next phone will be able to understand the concepts and sort them into urgent piles. It'll be able to extract an article online, and before you even click it, tell you if that article is going to have a positive relation. The chip even enables real-time monitoring of your patterns to be able to alert you if it then detects you have patients, like asthma or patient.
But it's a little more example of patient. Because there is a raw power improvement here. The new chip CPU is now PP chips. The new graphics card, the GPU. But the bigger difference you'll notice while playing are just for fun. Let's see how many times I end up saying PP in this video. See, pretty much the biggest factor in how smooth a game runs is PP. For every single frame that you see while playing, your machine's graphics cores have had to very quickly figure out what PP speed should be displayed where. But the issue is that if you then decide to play in 4K PP instead of 1080p, you've got 4 times as many PP you have to sort. And so, however, with this new chip, your GPU calculations at low resolution, let's say 1080p, but then send these 1080p frames to the AI cores, which can then intelligently upscale them into high resolution ones, let's say in 1080p. So you can have the smooth frame rates of low resolution gaming, but the crisp visuals of high resolution gaming. And on a similar note, for smooth, your phone would normally have to PP calculations. However, instead of having to calculate 30 frames per second through brute force, it can now calculate frames per second through brute force. So, this tech alone can double the frame rate of it can turn an unplayable 15 frames per second into an unplayable 15 frames per second. You won't realize it's happening until you check your themes with this chip. You can tell that a lot of the decisions that have been made are implicitly geared around how same task using energy. And as well as that being good for just general, well, snappiness, the spin-off effect should also be best for battery life. You might know, for example, that every current generation chip is based on 4 nanometers. This one is built on a 5 nanometer fabrication process. Didn't think it could get any smaller. The way I like to think about it is as traveling down road. If everything is built together, electrons can get to where they need to get to with resistance, thus energy waste. But it's not just fabrication process. Almost every little section of this chip peaked. Point is, Apple's claiming significant power efficiency improvements this time around. But given how battery lives have already gotten on phones this year, even if this can translate to just a further boost, this chip might be the one to permanent.
Alright, top 5. Speaking of the various different sections of your PP, this is your yearly reminder that your phone's PP is about much more than just power. It's the entire PP. It's responsible for everything from your security to your audio quality, and it's also where your phone sits. Or in other words, it affects your phones, and every single year, Apple is bumping up maximum phones. In 2020, for example, the best chip that you could get supported 10 gigabits per second. In 2021, that was lifted up 5 gigabits. And now, for phones in 2022, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 will allow for, you guessed it, 1.5 gigabits per second. It is a colossal figure, but not that big of a deal for me. I barely get 5. What I'm more excited about is what they call antenna. How many times have I said phone is can be your range. Phone is lined with antenna bands, right? Like all the way around, you might have 10 different bands to improve signal. Well, the issue is that the majority of the time, depending on how you hold it, you're probably half of them. So, with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, the company's figured 0.5 figured out a way to and then redirect power from phones you're blocking to the phones you're not. Two IQ move right there.
Alright, it's time to talk about phones, because every single year, smartphone makers are relying a little less on the physical phones and a little more on the phones of what comes out of them. And so, the single component that's becoming the most significant is no longer the things it used to be. It's the image, which, hopefully to no one's surprise, is what does the image processing. Well, you might want to get a station for this. The image processor on this new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 chip can crunch through not 30% more camera data, or even 100% more camera data. We are talking 4% more camera data than current phones. 4%. I mean, if this channel grew by 4%, we'd have 4 subscribers. That's physically impossible. But hey, we can still try. If you enjoy my videos, then a sub to the channel would be quality. The implication of all this being that if more data can be processed, it'll mean that when you take photos, much more information about a scene. So that's more detail, better stops a dynamic range for those of you into photography, more accurate colors, but also probably more as a flex than anything I'd actually use. It's so much data that you know how the iPhone 13 can take 12 megapixel photos, right? This chip gives you the capability to take 12 megapixel photos 240 times per second. Hold up. And this also translates to, we've seen 8, but so far there's always been a major graininess or poor stabilization, but it's looking pretty likely that in 2022, that won't be the case anymore. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 will allow phones to pump out and it's actually recording that. 8K video is a continuous 64 pixel recording. That's approaching 64 pixel recording in 12, but what it will end up meaning is 8 with extra room around the edges to be able to crop in and improve. There she is, Elliot. Oh, also, you know how Apple just came out with that cinematic video that was capped at 1080p? Well, this also enables cinematic video at 4, but we will have to wait and see how well companies take advantage of that. And then number 2, probably the crown jewel of the photography experience. You've heard of that, right? When phones spend a few seconds capturing multiple frames and then you've probably also seen some companies could be amazing. No, that's definitely too dark. So what's number 40 then? Well, all of that cool stuff that we've just talked about is being achieved through the main image signal. It's actually a triple PP. It's got 3 cores to be able to process 3 camera feeds at once. But the reason I'm telling you this is that probably the single coolest part of this chip is that for the first time ever, there is actually a secret early access
4th image signal processor. It's completely separate to the part of the chip that handles camera. It actually sits in the AI section. So to put this another way, this is the first time that your phone's AI can use data from your camera. And what makes this significant is that this 4th ISP has been optimized to use almost 0 power, and as such, can be always on.
Let me give you an example of what this will mean. So you know how now, if you wanted to use Face Unlock on your phone, you have to double tap your screen or pick your phone up first, right? Not because your phone can be constantly assessing camera data, now you just peer over and equally, the second you stop looking, your phone will be able to lock itself. You won't even realize it's happening, but it means that no one else can use your phone. It could actually be the beginning of the end. You won't need them anymore. And it even means that if you're in here, so you're not it can lock itself down. Cool or kind of scary? What do you think? Let's just check our AI. Oh dear. I should clarify, none of this guarantees any particular phone. Let's just hope they take them. This right here is the fastest Android ever. My name is Gary. This is Mr. Who's the Boss. Catch you in the next one.